Come scrapbook with me while I talk about Vocaloid Tone Rion. Rion is a Japanese Vocaloid from the Vocaloid 3 era. She was also the 5th Vocaloid of the Vocaloid 3 era. When Vocaloid 3 debuted, it was a very big deal within the community. The year was 2011, Hatsune Miku was wildly successful, and Vocaloid 3 opened up the floodgates for companies to join the Vocaloid bandwagon. The first Vocaloids to ever drop on V3 all came at once. In October of 2011, we got VY1 V3, Gumi V3, CU, and Mew. A couple of months later, we got Tone Rion. Rion is developed by a company called Deer Stage. They are an idol company. Rion was the first moe Vocaloid we ever had. She was very directly aimed at the otaku community. Like, most Vocaloids were not aimed at otaku prior to this point. Like, yeah, a lot of them had anime designs, but just because something has an anime design does not mean it's aimed at otaku. Tone Rion was very much so a deliberate choice at that. Anyway, so Rion was supposed to be the first of a lineup of vocals. Deer Stage had a whole plan to make a whole line of Vocaloids based off of various idols. Unfortunately, that project fell through, but I'll get there in a bit. Tone Rion was expected by Yamaha to be a success. With the new era of Vocaloid 3, there were a lot of changes to Vocaloid. At the time, Yamaha embraced the otaku culture. She was heavily featured in Vocafair 2011, which was an official Vocaloid event that Yamaha held. It was kind of like a virtual concert. You can actually still find videos of it online. Vocaloid 3 is where we had a bustling culture of media, merchandise, concerts, all stuff that was not centered around Hatsune Miku for once. It was great. But it was also very overwhelming and oversaturated. And Tone Rion was trying to recreate the Hatsune Miku. A lot of Vocaloids in the Vocaloid 3 era were trying to do that. A lot of companies saw the success of Hatsune Miku and wanted to recreate that. And I think Tone Rion was very ambitious. The fact that she was supposed to be the first in a line of vocals, the way she was deliberately aimed at otaku, it's very fascinating. Okay, so Tone Rion actually has quite a bit of lore. She is 16 years old and she was born in December of 2095. In her lore, she works for Deer Stage in the year 2111. Then she found a floppy disk, fell inside of it, and time traveled to 2011. Okay, it wasn't a floppy disk, it was like a memory card. And she didn't fall inside of it, but she definitely time traveled. We also know that she is a maid from Akihabara. Yeah, that otaku bae goes hard. If you ever sit down and analyze Tone Rion's V3 design, the more you stare at it, the more details you find. Like, girlie is rocking thigh-high boots, socks, something, and then she's got a band-aid over her boot socks. They threw it as much as they possibly could on her. She's so busy, she could be a 4-star in Genshin Impact. Anyway, Tone Rion did not do very well. When the floodgates opened, a lot of cutesy female Japanese voice banks flooded in. She had a bit of popularity in the very beginning of Vocaloid 3, when Vocaloid 3 was very shiny and new, and Rion was very shiny and new. But that popularity faltered, and within a couple of years of her release, she fell into total obscurity. So Tone Rion was supposed to be the first in a series of Vocaloids. Deer Stage had come up with their own series of Vocaloids called Vocalo Idol. They wanted to create a Vocaloid that you can meet, where 2D Vocaloid meets 3D Idol. But because of Tone Rion's kind of failure, that didn't really pan out. So Rion just kind of lingered for a few years. She was otaku bait, and the otaku did not bite. Deer Stage was kind of dormant within Vocaloid for a few years. But then in 2017, they made a comeback. They revived Tone Rion. Except this time, she was pink. Yeah, these two designs are the same girl. They're both Tone Rion. The purple one is her original Vocaloid 3, and the pink one is her Vocaloid 4 design. But not only did they rebrand Rion, they gave her a friend. They gave up on the idea of a Vocalo idol, and instead, alongside Tone Rion, was a Vocaloid named Nemu, which also happens to be the same name as the voice provider for Tone Rion, Nemu. Yeah, when Rion reappeared as Vocaloid 4, not only did she bring a friend, but we learned that her voice provider was Nemu. Now, the human singer Nemu, she was part of an idol group called Gumi Inc. Gumi Inc. had some affiliation with Deer Stage. Now, Nemu actually left Gumi Inc. in 2019. That was a couple years after the release of Rion's Vocaloid 4 version. Pivoting back to Rion, so yeah, Rion debuted once again. She was completely redesigned. This time she came with a new friend named Nemu. Nemu is not part of the original lineup that Deer Stage had planned. She is part of the Rion rebrand. Actually, it's more accurate to say that Rion is part of the Nemu rebrand, because the focus on the Vocaloid 4 version of Rion was actually all about Nemu, the Vocaloid. Like, Nemu's the one that got the album, not Rion. It's also a really good album, by the way. I really recommend checking it out. Nemu and Rion sound very different from each other. Rion is very soft and nasal, and Nemu is how do I explain it? Nemu's kind of gritty and a bit deeper than Rion. Let me put it this way. She sounds like a high-quality version of Gotcha Boy. And I mean that lovingly, because I love Nemu very much. I own her. Nemu's a faithful recreation of her voice provider, whereas Rion was more of a character vocal. The two of them could actually cross-synthesis with each other. Cross-synthesis is a now dead feature from Vocaloid. It came about in the Vocaloid 4 era, where basically you could blend the two voice banks together. But that feature was removed in Vocaloid 5, so when Rion's new design dropped, everyone was shooketh. First of all, on the list of Vocaloids everyone thought was going to get revived, Tone Rion was not one of them. She was a frickin' curveball in 2017. Like, first there was the revival, but then she has this new design. Like, not even the eye color is the same. Rion V4 is no longer aimed at otaku. At least not intensely as her V3 was. They also seem to have abandoned her lore entirely about her being a Akihabara maid from the future. She really was a tie-in for Yumemi Nemu the Vocaloid. It was odd and jarring. They didn't even re-record her Vocaloid 4 version. It's straight up just a port of her V3 into V4 with growl added. As for where Rion is today, Dear Sage has mostly left the Vocaloid scene. They don't really update about Nemu or Rion anymore. Nemu and Rion used to have boxes, but now they are download only. Vocaloid.